I've been debating whether or not to do this, whether or not to come on and talk to you guys. But I want to share with you guys what I've been going through myself, what's going on. A lot of you guys have gotten my emails, have seen my Instagram, and I've obviously shifted my business. I am no longer designing knitting patterns. I have no plans to go back to design knitting patterns, and I'm going to tell you guys why. I love knitting as a hobby, and it started off as something that was just going to be fun. I was just going to dabble in it. I was going to start sharing my content. I was going to try some knitting patterns, maybe try some other fun products. And it became something that I did not anticipate at all. I'm not going to sit on here and talk about like what I didn't like about my business. I am going to sit here and tell you guys what I loved about that business and what it taught me and how it's shaped me to transition into this new phase and what I want to do now. I began sharing my knitting, I began creating patterns, and I started to see how I was making myself different. I saw kind of a gap in the market, I'll call it. I didn't see a lot of knitting pattern designers create patterns that were really easy to understand and that were visual, right? It felt like there was a disconnect between a new knitter being able to see a garment and be able to make it by reading a pattern. If you were new to knitting, it was really hard to understand even how to read a pattern, what gauge was, all that stuff. And so my goal was to make knitting a sweater really easy or easier, right? My goal was to approach the way people had been approaching other knitting pattern designers and approach it from a totally different, unique perspective, my unique perspective, right? And I've been calling that my creative edge, right? My edge it wasn't like me getting on and ranting about what I saw in the knitting industry. I don't want you guys to mistake being like edgy as being like loud and obnoxious. It was just my take, my perspective, what made me different. A gap, an issue I saw, and how I tried to provide content and products that help to solve that problem or that gap in the market, and to just kind of shake things up and do things that no other people were really doing, or doing them in a way that was mine that nobody else was doing, right? And so it evolved into something where I learned a lot, right? I do have a background in digital marketing, so I kind of understand like the big picture and user experience on a website and how to get someone through a funnel and to buy a product, right? My background is in digital marketing and web design and user experience. I did all of that before knitting. So I was able to kind of take what I learned from that side of me and apply that to my business. And I didn't realize all this was happening while I was doing this. And now that I've kind of taken a step back, I'm understanding, right? I was able to find what made me different, but I was also able to create this marketing ecosystem. I know that sounds kind of boring, but that's really what it was. It was a way that I built this like powerful engine that brought me a ton of traffic, brought people into my world, had them stay and stick around, and then when I was ready to sell a product, they bought. That's it. That's all it was. I got traffic from, and I say traffic, but it's people seeing my stuff from a ton of different sources. I'm talking Pinterest, I'm talking Facebook groups, I'm talking other bloggers posting my work. I'm talking SEO, like people Googling how to knit a top-down raglan sweater and my website showing up as first. It was all of these things centered around my ability to clearly communicate how I'm different and why I'm unique, right? And then that whole marketing ecosystem, bringing people into my world, having them opt into my email list. I had over 100,000 people on my email list, guys. I had an audience who was willing to buy because they saw my value. They saw either a free pattern or they saw me on YouTube explain something. They saw me on Instagram explaining something that they thought once they couldn't do, that now they feel empowered that they can do. So while I loved knitting so much and teaching and connecting with people, I also really fell in love with this whole marketing system I discovered. How to find traffic, how to bring people into my world, where to find them, what kind of messages I was putting out into the universe that I wanted people to hear, a way that made me different, brought them into my world, and then when I was ready to sell, they were willing to buy. Now I learned a lot of other things along the way, right? Like some of you have heard me talk about this, right? Like I sold physical products, I sold digital products, digital patterns, and then digital knitting tools. I've learned a lot about what kind of products make sense, right? For me, a $9 digital knitting pattern that took me months to create and like a full step-by-step video tutorial wasn't sustainable for me. That wasn't what worked for me. I created a $17 digital knitting gauge converter tool that sold like gangbusters, right? Like I found a way to solve a specific problem that my audience needed. It took me a long time to get to know them and understand them and figure out what they need, but I was able to create smart products that were scalable, that were easy for me to make. I did not have complicated marketing funnels. I did not have an email sequence, a 10-part email sequence. I did not run ads. I showed up as myself. I figured out what I wanted to focus on. Once I just started creating, I was like, okay, let me try this. This makes sense. I kind of got my footing, my grounding once I just started. I didn't overthink starting. I didn't second guess things. I just started. I just put content out there. I just got started. I found my voice. I found my footing. I discovered what made me different, and I owned that. I jumped into that. I figured out where my people were hanging out. I brought them into my world, and I marketed them with my emails on Instagram. And then when I was ready to release products and sell products, they bought. So my point in all of this is I love knitting. I love the business I created. I am at a point now where I realize that I fell in love so much with the marketing part of this, understanding how I built this whole marketing ecosystem that got me over 100,000 people on my email list, that got me 122,000 Instagram subscribers, that got me to almost 100K YouTube subscribers. I'm at 99 right now. That brought thousands of visitors to my website every month from places I never knew they were coming from, or I started figuring out, and I honed in on that. I realized that I fell in love with the marketing system that I created, and I'm like, wow, I love doing this. I love seeing how all of these pieces and parts work together. I love bringing people into my world. I love figuring out fun, creative ways to solve problems and make products for them. And so now I'm at a point where I am confident. Like I have always in the back of my mind, like played with other things that I've wanted to do, but now I am so confident at this point in my life that I am ready to move on from the actual knitting part, and I am ready to embrace and walk into the marketing part of this. And I have, on the side, like with friends and other people in my community, I have started working with other people just to kind of test things out and figure out what's next for me. I just built an amazing website for someone in my community who opened up a craft studio, and I loved that. And what I loved about that was getting to know her business and helping her get her business up and running and figure out what she needed and help her solve some tricky problems and things like that. That's probably, or it might not be what you thought this video was about. A lot of you guys probably thought, oh, she's gonna come on and talk about like why she hates designing knitting patterns and what's wrong with the knitting space and all of this, right? Like, I could have that conversation, right? But that's not the point of this conversation. The point of this conversation is to let you know about this pivot for me, this change for me, why I'm changing, what I'm doing now, and how I'm here to help you now. So if you are here because you've ever thought or you already have a business, a creative business, really any kind of small business, right? Like, I am here to help you. I am here to help you figure out what that marketing ecosystem looks like, what your creative or unique edge, your unique perspective is, and how to create products that make sense, that are scalable, right? It's all these different pieces and parts that need to work together. You need to bring the people in. You need to have clear messages. You need to have amazing products. All of these things need to start working together for you to have an amazing business. And I know this can feel overwhelming. Hi, I've been there. It feels very chaotic. It feels very messy. As creative people, we have all of these thoughts and ideas in our head, and sometimes it can be really difficult to just kind of like hone in on what's important, be clear on you and your message and your unique voice. You get so distracted by seeing other things that people are doing. You're like, oh my gosh, I need to do that. And you might even be listening to or watching this video, and you might even say like, I need to do what she's doing. Yeah, you need to do what I'm doing, but you need to do it in your own way. You need to figure out what your way looks like. So I'm here. I don't have my whole business figured out yet, right? But here's what I do know I'm good at. I am good at, like, you give me your website, you give me your Instagram account, and I'll tell you in minutes where I think the disconnect is between what you're saying and what you're selling, and why you're not selling how much you want to be selling. I can do that very quickly. I can help you figure out, you're posting about a product on Instagram, but it's taking me 17 clicks to actually get to it on your website. Things that like you need someone else to kind of come in and get an outside perspective on to figure out what's not working, why. It's really hard to do that on your own business because you're so far into it. You're so much in the weeds. You're not really necessarily thinking about how your customer is thinking. You're not thinking about some simple things that could be fixed, and also the big picture in the ways that you should be in a productive way, right? So, you know, like, I'm not here pitching like a specific freebie or product or whatever. I am just here to let you know that I can help you. I can help you figure out your next step. I can just be a sounding board if you feel like you need to vent, you have all these ideas and you don't even know where to start. I am here if you need to talk to someone about what to do with your Instagram. I am here to talk to you if you need help figuring out what the heck is going wrong with your website. So I'm here, and you can work with me by booking a 1-hour call. That's it. Like, we can just chit chat. We can talk about all the things in your business, and I can just help you kind of make sense of everything and figure out some specific things that you can make changes on right away, and maybe some bigger things you need to like start figuring out, okay? So I am no longer designing knitting patterns. I am here to help other creatives build really amazing, strong businesses because I see it daily. I see so many smart, creative women who are so knowledgeable. I almost want to start crying. They are so deeply knowledgeable about what they do. They are experts. They are creating beautiful things, teaching amazing things. They have such a depth of knowledge. But what they're saying, what they're putting out there on social media, how they're selling themselves, what products they're selling, those things just don't really reflect and communicate the amazing stuff that they have to offer. So that's where I am. That's kind of what I wanted to come on here and talk about. If you want to just chit chat with me, talk about your business, talk about where you're going, talk about what you want to do. If you want to just get some clarity on what's next, if you want to pick my brain about certain things that I've done, if you're stuck on a specific thing in your business, let's just chat. So book a call with me if you're interested. If not, that's okay. Follow along. I'm going to have lots of other great information. I am really passionate about talking about these things, so you'll probably find me on here a lot, kind of just ranting and raving and maybe not even having a clear point all the time. But I just wanted to let you guys know what's going on in my head, what I've been working through myself, and why this change is happening. All right, so I will see you around YouTube. I will see you around Instagram, and I will chat with you all later. Bye.